Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Myles, and I'm a senior editor at fDi Intelligence, which is a specialist publication within the Financial Times. And we're here at the New City Summit in Nairobi, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Mark Lutter, who is the founder and executive director of the Charter Cities Institute. Mark, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So you are in the midst of wrapping up what's been an incredible event. And while we've been here, I've been speaking with lots of different attendees. And it seems like there are a number of different philosophies and approaches in terms of how to develop cities in regions like Africa and beyond. But tell us about the Charter Cities concept and where it stands today.
Sure. So to me, kind of the big question is, right, like, how do you get countries to do well? Which means, how do you improve governance in countries? And charter cities are a tool to do that. Right, you can pass national level reforms. And the national level reforms might say, okay, we liberalize the labor market, liberalize the investor climate, right, whatever that might be. But that can be very challenging. You might have interest groups that benefit from current market inefficiencies. And so the idea behind the charter city concept is to figure out, okay, rather than doing national reforms, which should still be pursued, you should also pursue local reforms. Basically special economic zones, supercharged special economic zones. And so what this looks like is saying, okay, let's take this area, let's take this region where very few people, if any, live, and let's say, okay, let's create a much better economic environment, a much more attractive economic environment that makes it much easier to invest, much easier to hire people, much easier to register a business, much easier to get title to your property. And that can attract capital, create jobs, and stimulate economic growth. And so I guess some of the other kind of relevant considerations are, all right, why a city? Why not a special economic zone? And so the idea behind a charter city is because a city is the smallest unit that can have sustained economic growth, right? Many special economic zones are very small. They might be 10 acres, and that might be helpful for some limited investment, but it's not going to be transformative. The purpose of charter cities is to be transformative, is to hopefully transform the economic trajectory of a country by creating a new set of rules that is more conducive to investment, to job creation, to entrepreneurship, to all of these kind of good things that lead to increased wealth and human flourishing. So when we focus here at the Charter Cities Institute and at the New City Summit, is how do we leverage new city developments? How do we leverage special economic zones? How do we leverage kind of government openness to these ideas to change the legal framework for new city developments that can lead to sustained economic growth?
So you've just given a really clear definition and sort of idea of this concept, but there are some misconceptions out there, it seems, about charter cities. What are the biggest misconceptions that you come across, and how do you and your team sort of help tackle and address these?
Sure. So one of the misconceptions is probably that charter cities are for the rich. And so you see not a lot, but there are some projects that might target foreigners or might target upper income segments that might not be as open to kind of the broader market. And so what we do at the Charter Cities Institute, so one example is via our research arm, which is the African Urban Lab. One of the programs we're running under that is the Urban Expansion Program. And urban expansion, what that means is, right, you can look at a map and see where a city is growing. It's like, okay, city, population growth, it will grow X amount every year. If the area is flat, it's going to grow there. If the area is mountainous, it's probably not going to grow there, right? So you can look on a map and see, okay, right, like, I'm making numbers up, I don't know, but Nairobi, 3 million people now, 20 million people in 30 years. You have a general sense of where those people are going to live. So what urban expansion does is it says, okay, we know where these people are going to live. Let's make sure we have a good road network and basic public infrastructure that can be filled in. So instead of there being informal settlements and slums that tend to be a little bit chaotic, that don't have good road network, they don't have good access to jobs, they don't have public utilities, right? This says, okay, like, now we've got the basic urban layout, it exists, right? We work with municipal governments, we work with relevant authorities to create that basically infrastructure framework that can serve the bottom of the market. And so that's, I think, one example of how we make sure that these are solutions that are widely applicable and not just for a small percentage of the economic elite, but we try to have that philosophy kind of influence all of our decisions. So I think that's probably the main misconception. I don't know, other misconceptions. I guess one of them is, I guess two others. One misconception is might be kind of, right, charter cities are neo-imperialism or something like that, where you've got kind of a bunch of foreign actors coming in. And, I mean, I am American, I am foreign, but like we try to pride ourselves in partnering with local actors. So, for example, one of the first projects we partnered with was in Zambia, led by a Zambian. We've partnered with projects in Nigeria led by Nigerians. So we try to find the local partners that have a shared set of values, shared ideas, partner with them, empower them so they can kind of better achieve their goals. I think the third misconception, less misconception, more what might be described as like lack of information, is just the state of the charter city space. And so if you look at news coverings, right, the idea originated with Paul Romer in 2008, 2009. There's a huge media flurry then, and people a little bit lost interest. And now I think what we're seeing at the summit and kind of beyond is there's starting to be more real projects on the ground. And we're in the early stages, right? There's only a few projects that really have tens of thousands of people. But we're seeing like projects get land, get partnerships with government, get investment, where the goal is to create this cascading effect, right? And so to go back to the importance of charter cities, right, passing national level reform is hard. And the idea of charter cities is if you get one, the second one becomes easier. The third one becomes easier. So you can have this cascading effect where as you build up momentum, you get more and more projects, you get better and better rules, you get more investment coming in, you get more job creation. And it's this kind of hopefully virtuous cycle, this self-sustaining mechanism for economic reforms that can lead to much more rapid economic reforms than kind of traditional methods. And so, yeah, I think the three kind of misconceptions are: one, charter cities are only for the rich; two, charter cities are kind of a bit of a, like, I don't know, foreign plot; and then three, charter cities like are just this fantasy that isn't happening when we're seeing real projects on the ground.
So you spoke about the importance of partnering with local organisations, which absolutely makes sense. But taking a step back, how powerful can charter cities be in terms of attracting foreign investment to have, or to sort of accelerate, I guess, those positive spillovers for local economic development?
Sure. So I guess one of the examples, the project they presented yesterday, I think, and today, they were on two different things, that we've recently started working with is the Shorebro Island development. Mm-hmm. I forget the actual name, but right. So it's a partnership between Siaka Stevens, who's the grandson of one of Sierra Leone's founding fathers, as well as Idris Elba, whose mother or father is from Sierra Leone, I forget which. And they're forming a partnership with the Sierra Leone government on Shorebro Island, which is a large island about 600 square kilometers just off the coast. And that agreement includes very strong investor protection. Right, and so the reason a lot of investors don't invest in the emerging market is because there are not strong investor protections. Right, the property rights are not secure. So they say, all right, I don't want to put $50 million in a factory because what if the government changes their mind, expropriates me, and then I have no legal recourse? And so the way you get around this is figuring out how to create kind of a very strong set of protections. You tie the government's hands. And so, kind of slightly off topic, in the emergence of kind of the modern West, right, like, independent courts were a function to tie the government's hands, right? So in England, you had independent courts develop in part because, going nerdy, strong centralized state realized that to develop capital, they didn't need to fully control the courts. The courts developed kind of independent processes and procedures that created kind of what we know as modern rule of law. And so you have this history of figuring out how states can tie their own hands. That allows for a lot more capital investment, a lot more commerce. And charter cities we see as a tool, that kind of a new tool, a modern tool, that allows states to figure out, okay, how can we come up with a commitment that says in this area, right, we're not going to touch it. And that way, instead of having 100 different people say, I want to put in $5 million each to 5 different factories, they're all putting their investment in a charter city, and the charter city says, we have the agreement with government. So the charter city is kind of shielding them from unpredictable governments and dealing with some of the broader possible legal risk that oftentimes prevents capital from flowing into these places because the investors don't have security that their capital and their property rights will be respected.
So you've just highlighted one of the sort of great projects that has been presented, obviously, over the past 2 days. What have been some of the other key takeaways that you would sort of point to as things that have been enlightening, sort of not just for us, but maybe also for you as well?
Yeah, so I think one of the most, I guess, exciting things is seeing a community and kind of a open community and network emerge. Some of our funding, for example, comes from Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley works in part because it's open, because there's a lot of people trying a lot of different things, and people are pretty open and willing to share. There's kind of a phrase that goes around in some circles, like learning in public, which means like, I'm going to try something new, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to acknowledge when I screw up and when I do things right. And that makes it much easier, because then it's like, okay, this person did something new and they screwed up here. I know that I'm not going to screw up here, right? Where historically, depending on how you want to count, there's over 200 new cities being built around the world. But the vast majority of these projects were siloed, right? So as each person said, all right, I need to figure out everything myself. And figuring out everything yourself is really, really, really hard, especially when you're talking about projects with 10, 20, 30-year time horizons. You're talking about projects that have very high amounts of capital, that have very kind of specialized requirements in terms of urban planning, in terms of infrastructure, right? And that's part of the reason why I think we don't see more of these projects. And so what's been very encouraging to me is to see people kind of start to talk, see people talk with projects that might be more advanced, get mentorship from them, figure out what mistakes to avoid, and seeing this community emerge that I think can hopefully make the next generation of projects more successful, as well as raise the ambitions of some projects. So a developer that we've worked with a little bit in Zanzibar kind of mentioned, like, all right, I'm building a town in Zanzibar, but now I guess everybody's building a city, so like I need to be a little bit more ambitious. And so seeing that level of ambition rise and that level of camaraderie and openness that hopefully allows for better execution on the projects has been quite encouraging. I think the other thing that I've seen I've been kind of excited about and kind of knew it was there, it's different seeing it in person, is the quality of the projects, right? We first held the summit a year and a half ago in Kigali, and we had good projects there, but I think there's been a noticeable improvement in the quality of the projects. And I think that's good, because I think the only way we can justify ourselves as a space, as something that's interesting, worth paying attention to, worth funding, worth attending events, like all that stuff, is by actually succeeding on the ground, is by seeing more projects, more dirt move, more investment, more government partnerships that are what we believe is really a key to hopefully stimulating economic growth and lifting millions, tens of millions of people out of poverty.
So as you said, the last New City Summit was, 18 months ago in Kigali. So sort of looking ahead, what are you thinking about? What are your ambitions, or what do you hope to achieve or get out of sort of the next New City Summit?
Sure. So I think the next one, it's kind of just better, right? Like better projects, better teams, better government engagement, just level up, right? Like, and so what that looks like is things I've kind of heard people talk about is, right, again, going back to the Sherwood Island project, is like, okay, that's kind of the gold standard in a legal agreement for government. Now other people are aware of that, they might be kind of see like, okay, that's what we can push for, that's what we can ask for. Governments see that, they might say, okay, this isn't as scary as we once thought, this might unlock a lot of investment, a lot of positive media attention, right? Maybe we do want to partner a little bit more ambitiously with some of these projects. So you might see that entrepreneurs get a little bit more ambitious, a little bit more excited, hopefully more investors, more capital that comes and says, look, I believe in these projects, I want to invest, I want to make things happen, more government engagement. We had conversations with the president's office, and there was interest in attending, but unfortunately he was unable to make it. But hopefully next time we get a president, right? That would be really cool. So just kind of figure out how to level up, how to make everything a little bit better, and keep the momentum going, and keep seeing even better projects and more action and more economic growth.
And so last time it was in Rwanda, this time Kenya. Where do you think it's going to be next year?
I don't know. If you want to host, get in contact with me.
I'm looking forward to it already. Mark, thank you very much for your time, and congratulations on such a great event.
Great. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.